Indirect talks between Israel and Hamas on a potential peace deal have begun in Egypt in a bid to secure a lasting ceasefire in Gaza and the return of Israeli hostages. Today marks 2 years since the October 7 attacks, when Hamas militants killed 1,200 people and took another 250 captive. The subsequent war in Gaza has left an estimated 67,000 Palestinians dead. Let's head to America's editor, John Lyons, who's in Washington. John, firstly, how consequential are these meetings, and tell us how they're being carried out?
Well, Gemma, we've had many sort of ceasefire talks over the past 2 years where we thought perhaps there was a chance something would happen. These are quite different, though, because I think President Trump is actually exerting huge influence on all the parties, including on his great ally, Israel. And he's really making it clear he wants this to happen. He wants it to happen quickly. And he has said recently, a couple of hours ago, that Hamas has agreed to some key issues. And the way they're happening is they're meeting at the Egyptian resort of Sharm El-Sheikh, which is known by many tourists as quite an upmarket resort in Egypt. They have Qatar has its representatives there, so does Egypt, and the United States has flown in 2 of Donald Trump's key advisors, his son-in-law Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, who is his special envoy that he sends to various places for these sort of talks. Now, the Hamas officials who are there will not have any direct contact with the Israelis, which sort of says everything. They will be in separate parts of the hotel. The Israelis will say yes or no to something. That will then be relayed to the Hamas people. And the Qataris and the Egyptians will, with the Americans, try to come up with some agreement so that this horrible war, which, as you say, has almost been going 2 years to the day, will come to an end.
John, what has been agreed to so far?
So far, we saw late last week, Hamas issued a response to Donald Trump's 20-point peace plan, and Hamas has essentially agreed to the immediate exchange of hostages for prisoners. Under the Donald Trump deal, there would be the 48 Israeli hostages who are still in Gaza. Only 20 of them are believed to still be alive. The other 28 are deceased. Within 72 hours of this deal being signed, those 48 hostages would be returned to Israel, probably with the Red Cross or some agency like that being the mediator, being the ones who would physically take them to the border, send the cross back into Israel. And in return for that, there'd be close to 2,000 Palestinian prisoners, many of who've been taken since this war began in Gaza 2 years ago, but in exchange of about 2,000. And the other thing that's been agreed is Hamas has actually said we will cease to have any governments over Gaza, which is an important point for the Israelis, and that they have agreed to hand over the governing of Gaza to a Palestinian committee of technocrats that would be overseen by an international committee chaired by Donald Trump, which would include people like the former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. So they're the 2 main points, the 2 most crucial points that have been agreed to by Hamas and Israel. And
what are the key demands that Hamas is yet to respond to?
Well, Secretary of State for the US, Marco Rubio, said recently that 90% of this deal has been done. And now it's that last 10%, which, like any deal, of course, the remaining outstanding matters are usually the most difficult ones. That 10% is not going to be easy. So there's no guarantee this will work. And that 10% includes the list of the Palestinian prisoners who would be handed over by Israel. And the Palestinians will want in there some of the people who are in Israeli jails on 2 or 3 or 4 lifetime charges, and Israel traditionally will not want to release, in the past have not wanted to release any of those. Israel says that in one of these deals we released Yahya Sinwar, who then, as Israel says, went on to lead Hamas and to plan the October 7 atrocities. So there'll be a lot of toing and froing. Mossad, the Israeli Secret Security Service, will be there. either in person or remotely, looking at that list of Palestinian prisoners. A lot of them are in a way low-hanging fruit that Israel won't dispute, some of the women, some of the children who are in detention or prison. And that'll be a key thing. So another big issue will be the timeline of Israeli troop withdrawal, and then there's the demilitarisation, how that will happen, how quickly and in what form. So those three last issues are the ones that will end up being the most difficult over these 2 or 3 days.